الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ويل يومئذ للمكذبين الذين يكذبون بيوم الدين. وما يكذب به إلا كل معتد أثيم. إذا تتلى عليه آياتنا قال أساطير الأولين. كلا بل ران على قلوبهم ما كانوا يكسبون. كلا إنهم عن ربهم يومئذ لمحجوبون. ثم إنهم لصالو الجحيم. ثم يقال هذا الذي كنتم به تكذبون. كلا إن كتاب الأبرار لفي عليين. وما أدراك ما عليون. كتاب مرقوم يشهده المقربون. إن الأبرار لفي نعيم على الأرائك ينظرون. تعرف في وجوههم نضرة النعيم. يسقون من رحيق مختوم ختامه مسك. وفي ذلك فليتنافس
One of the reasons why I love coming to this space so much is because we're always graced by his recitation. So thank you very much for that. And thank you all for coming today. I'd like to welcome you with the Islamic greeting. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings of God be on you all. Thank you very much for attending today at the Al-Mahdi Institute's 2016 Big Iftar. The Big Iftar is an outreach program aiming to bring people of different faiths, cultures and backgrounds together in one room during the month of Ramadan, which is a sacred month for the Muslims in Islamic calendar. It is an opportunity to build friendships and relationships and rekindle some of our relationships. For me, I've been to a couple of these Big Iftars this month. I've been to different centres myself. It's been an exciting journey for me this month of Ramadan. What really stood out for me was when I went to one of these 8 Big Iftars was when a speaker addressing the crowd turned around and said that actually I'm going to these different centres, but now actually when I speak to a crowd, I see friends within the crowd. And for me, that's what this is all about. It's all about going to different parts of the city, different places and different centres, and looking at the crowd and seeing friends amongst the crowd, because that's where humanity taking precedent as our identity. So why is this important? Well, in the world today, where we can see increasingly people trying to build barriers between us, we have seen the consequences of what that can do for us, especially recently in the media. And therefore, what a better opportunity than to come together and share a hot meal with each other, to break our barriers, and to celebrate our diversity. I'm sure you'll all agree. And the theme of this evening tonight and the talks that we're going to have are going to be themed around the theme of charity. And when looking into this, I found a quote that rang quite true to me. It said, "We make a living by what we earn, or we make a life by what we give." And I'm sure all of us here, to some capacity, have been involved with some sort of charity endeavor in our lives. And I'm sure we all know the difference between what is to be living and what is to live a life. So therefore, without further ado, I invite our first speaker tonight, Sister Sajida Kanani Sarjan, who is a student here at the Al-Mahdi Institute. Can we please welcome her for our first speech?
My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. May the peace and blessings of Allah be upon you. As you have heard, I am a student here and just completing my first year at this institute. I am humbled to have been given the opportunity to stand at this podium and share a few words while my teachers and people much more knowledgeable than me are sitting in the audience more worthy of this position. But I do like speaking on the mic, so I will take it. Ramadan, a physically challenging month for many Muslims around the world, but a spiritually enlightening and empowering month. The Holy Prophet of Islam, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in an introduction to his month said, "This month is the blessed month of Allah, a month of blessing, mercy and forgiveness, a month that is the best of months to Allah. Its days are the best of days, its nights are the best of nights, and its hours are the best of hours. It is the month in which you are invited to be the guest of God, and He chooses you to be amongst those who are near to Him. Each breath you take glorifies Him. Your sleep is worship. Your deeds are accepted, and your supplications are answered. This is the sanctity and status of this holy month." The Prophet then addresses the recommendations to do for this month. He asks us to ask God to give us a healthy body and an enlightened heart, so that you may fast and observe prayer, and to reflect on the hunger and thirst that we face in this holy month. He then asks us to give charity to the needy and to the poor, look after our elderly, and honor the orphans, along with a list of many other things to do this holy month. As we reach towards the end of the day, when we feel our pangs of hunger and our parched throats, we can't but reflect at the plight of the millions of people in this world that suffer, We are able to empathize with those that get only one basic, simple meal a day, if that. And it makes us more giving and generous in this holy month. Perhaps that is why it is mandatory on us before the end of the month to forcibly pay the zakat al-fitr, which is the money we give to the poor and needy on the day of Eid. In one of our narrations we find, indeed, as part of the completion of the fast in the month of Ramadan is to give the zakat, which is the fitrah to the needy. For indeed, whosoever fasts but does not perform the zakat and abandons it intentionally, it is as if he has not fasted at all. This shows that if we do not transform our empathy into action, it is as if we have had no purpose in our fast. I would like to conclude with a few verses from a supplication that the Prophet has recommended us to recite after every prayer in the holy month of Ramadan. O Allah, enrich every poor person. O Allah, satisfy the hunger of all those who are hungry. O Allah, clothe every unclothed one. O Allah, fill our poverty with your needlessness. Surely you are all powerful over everything. Thank you.
One of the things that you said actually stuck out for me was how throughout this month we are building the empathy and how at the end of the month we have to turn that into action and for the remaining year as well. So thank you, I'll take that on board. And we wish you the best of your studies here. The next lesson we have is a talk on the importance of charity in Christianity by the Reverend Claire Turner. And please invite the Reverend Claire Turner.
Thank you so much for inviting me and friends that I've brought with me from various churches in the area to come tonight. It's really wonderful to be with you, and given the current climate, the uncertain times in which we live, events like these seem even more important. I'm sure many of you will have seen the Bishop of Birmingham taking part in the launch of a grassroots campaign called Love Your Neighbour on Friday morning. If you go to the campaign website, you'll see some fantastic pictures of people with signs written in different languages saying, love your neighbour. But of course, as the campaign website says, you can't love your neighbour if you don't know who they are. And events like tonight help us to start to get to know one another. But why am I talking about neighbours when you've asked me to speak about charity, and in particular about the Christian understanding of charity? Well, I start by talking about neighbours because neighbourliness, hospitality, is intrinsically linked to charity. The two go hand in hand. Because what Christians learn through reading the Bible and through reflecting on Christian tradition is that charity can't be, isn't, and shouldn't be something that gets us off the hook. We can't or shouldn't simply dip into our pockets and put a few pounds on the collecting plate and think that everything is then okay with the world when it isn't. I heard someone say that often we stand on the riverbank, pulling people out in times of crisis, when really we should be upstream, stopping them falling in the first place. Charity isn't about quick fixes or making ourselves feel good. Christian charity is about working for change, trying to catch a glimpse of God's kingdom amongst us by sharing what we have, money maybe, but also our time, gifts, talents and resources. And it's a whole lot easier to do that well if we know each other, if we understand the need, meet people where they're at. That's what we see Jesus doing in our Holy Scriptures, meeting people where they're at, often on the outskirts of town, often in the places and spaces that respectable people might avoid, and by doing that, we're called, I believe, to do the same. So charity in the Christian tradition is about hospitality as much as it is about money. It's about neighbourliness as much as it's about giving. Hospitality, well, we understand that, as I'm sure many here do, as paying attention to the people around us, taking care of them when they need it, sharing what we have and know, letting them do the same for us. And as I've said, it's our belief that such acts of hospitality, of charity, acts of kindness, bring God's kingdom closer. They can cost, but Christianity says all sorts of things about cost and sacrifice, but that's perhaps a different talk. But alongside that, our faith also teaches us about the blessing we receive when we act in that way. We receive as much, if not more, from each other and from God when we offer genuine, costly hospitality, charity, and kindness to one another. I've been asked to pray this evening, and whilst there are all sorts of prayers I could have written, I've decided to borrow a prayer from Mary, Jesus' mother. She sings these words once she learns that she is to have a child, and they speak of the kingdom we seek, a kingdom where the charitable, merciful hospitality of God fills the earth. And Mary said, "My soul magnifies the Lord, and my spirit rejoices in God my Saviour, for he has looked with favour on the lowliness of his servant. Surely from now on all generations will call me blessed, for the Mighty One has done great things for me, and holy is his name. His mercy is for those who fear him from generation to generation. He has shown strength with his arm. He has scattered the proud in the thoughts of their hearts. He has brought down the powerful from their thrones and lifted up the lowly. He has filled the hungry with good things and sent the rich away empty. He has helped his servant Israel in remembrance of his mercy, according to the promise he made to our ancestors, to Abraham, and to his descendants forever. Amen." Thank you.
It's wonderful to see campaigns like Love Your Neighbour, and ultimately, I think the message I got from you was it's okay to do the basic things, to give the charity, to patch up the problems. But really, the real change happens when we get to know people and we get to care about them and interest about them. So thank you for that. Our next speaker talks about the importance of charity in Hinduism. We have with us Mr. Shirin on a qualified recitation of Bahajan by Dr. Acharya Yadav Samaj. May I please welcome him.
Good evening, everybody. To my Muslim friends, Assalamu alaikum. To my Jewish friends, Shalom. I don't know what the Christian version of this is, but welcome. And I welcome all of you today to this institute. I've worked for this institute for about 2 years. I was co-opted as an accountant because apparently they wanted somebody who could actually add up and take away. They were very philosophical and religious, but not very great at doing the accounts. So, yeah. Let me begin by telling you a little bit about Hinduism and, in one sense, why it relates to charity, and I'll explain why the meaning of Hinduism is actually important. Hinduism isn't in the classic sense that you would have Islam or Christianity and organised religion. We have no hierarchy, we have no caliphs, we have no imams, etc. And in one sense, there is one central question in Hinduism which is really, really important. Any action in Hinduism you take is basically, am I doing what is morally right? There are lots of religious scripts we have, etc. And Hinduism is based on a language called Sanskrit, which is about 4,500, 5,000 years old. And one of the key things that's mentioned in there about 5,000 years ago is a word called dana, which basically means giving. And it defines giving in a very, very odd way. It defines giving in a way that says, you give, and your gift is recognised, only when it is something you need that you are giving away. So when you think about it, as a Brahmin, for example, within the Hindu priesthood, effectively think about giving things away, because a strict Brahmin is never allowed to eat food each day. He must go and beg at the houses of people in order to get his food. So he gives by not taking food from other people. And he relies on the donations of those people in order to exist. A strict Brahmin is not really supposed to in any way eat food any other way until it is donated to him and given to him after it has received relevant religious rites, etc. There are a couple of other things in Hinduism which are quite important as well. In terms of giving, what you really need to think about is, how do I improve my moral state by giving something? And when we talk about improving the moral state, Hinduism has a concept of birth and rebirth. But the whole point of Hinduism is ultimately what you need to get to is you don't come back in the cycle of rebirth. You go to the equivalent of heaven. And that is really important. And one of the paths to that spirit of enlightenment is for you to give away all your worldly possessions and exist in this world simply by meditating, existing in a way that's very, very spiritually aware, but is not about effectively earning or doing anything else. It's very, very much based on everything you have to be given away. You'll find many examples of very, very wealthy Hindus who have given away their entire fortune simply because they believe that it is one path to enlightenment. That's really important. Not that I'm intending to give my worldly wealth away this evening particularly, but I'm sure we can discuss that at some other point. The final thing I'll say is, about Hinduism and charity is, charity to Hindus is a very personal thing. We don't have the equivalent of zakat, the 1/40th giving. We don't have the Christian equivalent of a tithe, the church tithe. You give as much as you want to give, but what's more important is you give something that you need, not something that you can afford to give, which are very two different concepts. So there's a very famous Hindu story which I'll end with, where a king gives away his entire wealth all bar one mud hut he keeps. And there's a charioteer who carries people around, very, very humble guy, and he gives all of his possessions, including the device he uses to carry people around on. So they both go to heaven, or the equivalent of heaven, and the king says, look, I've done all these good deeds, I live in a mud hut, and yet you still haven't brought me to enlightenment. And God says to him very simply, did you really need the mud hut? And that's the way to think about it. That's how Hindus think about giving and charity. So that's the end of my little 2 minutes on Hinduism. I thank you very much. I'm not as eloquent as the speakers before me, but hopefully you've enjoyed the 2 or 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us, and that's really good. So, we need to keep in touch. Should you decide to give all your wealth away someday, glad to hear your stories. I believe next we have with us a recital of the Bhajan by Dr. Acharya Yadav Sandhu.
Thank you. Namaste to all. Bhaiyo Behno, I am here to recite a bhajan written by myself on fasting especially. So you have heard so many points, important points of fasting. It helps us to keep good health, to make us spiritual, to save food, for charity, and so many points you have heard and you will hear and listen to other speakers. I have short time, so I will only recite my poems. It is in Hindi. I don't know how many people are here to understand Hindi or Urdu, so I will recite. In Sanskrit word, fasting is called upvas, bratopasana. Upvas, bratopasana. Upasana, meditation, brat, determination, and upvas is fasting. So these all points are making us spiritual, and it will join us to society as well. So it's very important for connection. उपवास व्रत करना तो धर्मी, उपवास व्रत करना तो धर्मी, अध्यात्म शिखर चढ़ना तो धर्मी, अध्यात्म शिखर चढ़ना तो धर्मी। उपवास पूर्व आहार शुद्ध हो, उपवास पूर्व आहार शुद्ध हो, ऋत हो मित हो हित भोजन हो, ऋत हो मित हो हित भोजन हो, दिन में कभी डकारन आए, दिन में कभी डकारन आए, उपवास वास करा तू धर्मी, उपवास वास करा तू धर्मी। पाचन शक्ति बढ़ जाएगी, पाचन शक्ति बढ़ जाएगी, शरीर आरोग्यता आएगी, शरीर आरोग्यता आएगी, चंचल मन भी टिक जाएगा, चंचल मन भी टिक जाएगा। उपवास व्रत बढ़ा तू धर्मी, उपवास व्रत बढ़ा तू धर्मी, उपवास व्रत करना तू धर्मी, अध्यात्म शिखर चढ़ना तू धर्मी। सात्विक बुद्धि सात्विक चित्त हो, सात्विक बुद्धि सात्विक चित्त हो, शुद्ध ज्ञान इंद्रियां जागृत हो, शुद्ध ज्ञान इंद्रियां जागृत हो, अमर आत्मा प्रभु को पाए, अमर आत्मा प्रभु को पाए। उपवास ज्ञान बढ़ा तू धर्मी, उपवास ज्ञान बढ़ा तू धर्मी, उपवास व्रत करना तू धर्मी, उपवास व्रत करना तू धर्मी। उपवास प्यार का पाठ पढ़ावे, उपवास प्यार का पाठ पढ़ावे, मन से घृणा दूर भगाए, not to hate anyone, मन से घृणा दूर भगावे, उमेश मन को शांति मिलेगी, उमेश मन को शांति मिलेगी। उपवास विचार बना तू धर्मी, उपवास विचार बना तू धर्मी, उपवास व्रत करना तू धर्मी, उपवास व्रत करना तू धर्मी, अध्यात्म शिखर चढ़ना तू धर्मी, अध्यात्म शिखर चढ़ना तू धर्मी, उपवास व्रत करना तू धर्मी, उपवास व्रत करना तू धर्मी। Thank you very much to give me time and listen peacefully. Thank you.
Thank you. I couldn't quite make the words up myself at the time. in there, I was actually trying to attempt to translate a line or two. The few Indian movies I've watched in my lifetime, I thought, yeah, I'll be able to do this. But I don't think I'm quite the expert there yet. I think the gist I get from it was about the virtues of fasting, the peace of mind, and things related to that. So thank you for that. Our next speakers are speakers on the importance of charity in Judaism by Ms. Valerie and Mr. David Harrison. Please welcome them.
Shalom Aleichem, friends, because friends are strangers that you've just met. So we've just met you, so you're friends. In Judaism, it's important to give to all in need, not just Jews. We're told in the Torah, in the book of Deuteronomy, that God upholds the cause of the fatherless and the widow and befriends the stranger. And so we too must befriend the stranger, for we were strangers in the land of Egypt. And so giving charitably is a mitzvah, a duty. But it's important to maintain the dignity of the people to whom you give. Giving is important all the year round, not just at New Year and at Pesach, which are the big festivals, but there are special charitable drives for us at those times. But Jews are expected to get involved in charity in the community in all sorts of ways. And we have a reading which we're going to read to you, which is from our prayer book. Once a week we have special readings, and in this reading you will hear bits from the Torah, and you will also hear Maimonides' ladder of charity. Maimonides was a medieval scholar. He was actually a physician and a polymath, and he had 8 steps of giving, from the best sort of giving down to the worst sort of giving. And it's pretty self-explanatory, so over to David.
I will add that our prayer book is under frequent revision. In my life, this is now the 3rd completely different prayer book. The last one had added in all sorts of readings from various faiths, from various poets and things like that. But it was primarily devoted to making it not particularly male-oriented. Forefathers became ancestors, for instance, and the whole book is on that sort of level. But anyhow, I'll start with this reading. We're reading it together because when we read it in synagogue, it's read responsibly. So one of us is the chief voice and the other is taking the part of the congregation. If there is among you anyone in need, a member of your community in any of your settlements in the land that the Eternal One your God is giving you, you shall not harden your heart and shut your hand against such a needy person. But you shall give liberally and be ungrudging when you do so, for on this account the Eternal One your God will bless you in all your work, in all that you undertake.
Whoever is generous to the poor lends to God and will be repaid.
To give to those in need is not to be gracious, but to do one's duty. It is an act of love, but also of justice, which is the root meaning of the Hebrew word tzedakah, charity. It is to relieve suffering and correct injustice, and so to ensure that God's gifts are shared by all in a society whose members care for one another as brothers and sisters. Giving is a supreme ethical obligation, second only to that still greater mitzvah of Gemilah Chasadim, the doing of kind deeds.
Giving is greater than all sacrifices, and doing kind deeds is greater than giving.
From this conception of giving, many things follow. All must give, even those who are themselves in need of help. They must give willingly, not grudgingly. They must give as far as possible anonymously. The self-respect of the recipient must be protected, and the funds raised must be used wisely. And now we come to the part from Maimonides. Even the poor who are maintained by communal charity must contribute to it.
The reward for giving depends on the love with which it is done.
Better not to give at all than to humiliate the recipient.
One who gives in secret is greater than Moses.
The giver should not know who the recipient is, and the recipient should not know who the giver is. And how is this to be achieved? By giving to the communal fund.
Blessed are those who give to the poor. Better still are those who lend to them, and those who take them into partnership and share their profits with them are the best of all.
As arranged by Maimonides, there are 8 degrees of charity, one higher than the other. The highest of all is to help the needy with a gift or a loan or partnership, or by enabling them to find employment so that they may become independent. The second best is to give in such a way that the giver does not know who the recipient is, and the recipient does not know who the giver is. Below that is the case in which the giver knows the recipient, but the recipient does not know the giver. And that is followed by the case in which the recipient knows the giver, but the giver does not know the recipient. Next come those who give before being asked, and after them, those who give only when asked. Then those who give less than they should, but cheerfully, and lastly, those who give grudgingly.
Happy are those who consider the poor.
It does not say those who give to the poor, but those who consider the poor. That is, those who consider carefully how the mitzvah may be best fulfilled. You give but little when you give of your possession. It is when you give of yourself that you truly give.
May we always give generously, according to our means, but never think of ourselves as being generous. May we give because we care for those in need, so that justice may be done. May we give quietly and joyfully, because it is our duty and our privilege, happy in the knowledge that to give to God's children is to do God's will.
On 3 things does the world depend: on learning, worship, and loving deeds.
Al-Shloshla Devarim, Al-Shloshla Devarim, Al-Shloshla, Shloshla Devarim, Le'olam, Le'olam, Olam. Al-Shloshla Devarim, Al-Shloshla Devarim, Al-Shloshla, Shloshla Devarim, Le'olam, Le'olam, Olam.
Thank you so much. For me, from your particular passage, what stuck out to me is how a person giving charity and a person receiving charity, they should have known. The person receiving the charity should not be humiliated. This reminds me of an interesting story actually I read just a while ago about the traditional Ramadan during the Ottoman period. So did you know that during Ramadan, during the Ottoman period, rich people would often anonymously go to unknown stores and pay for the debts of poor people? How they would do this was there would be a book in which all the debts of the people would be written down. The rich person would come, would open the book, go to a random page, and rip the page out and give it to the store owner. The store owner would say his debts are now closed. So the needy person would not know who has paid his debt. And the person who is paying the person's debt would not know who is paid for. So as the evening goes on, undoubtedly we hear beautiful expressions of charity from different faiths and traditions. Our next talk is the talk on the importance of charity in Buddhism by Mr. Jan Lovelock, followed by a reading. Thank you.
about this, but you can see I'm vertically handicapped. Salam alaikum. Thank you very much indeed for inviting me to share a few thoughts with you. Listening to all of you so far, it's very obvious that giving is at the centre of our religious life, and most of us think very similarly. So I want to confine myself just to one or two of the significant differences of emphasis, only of emphasis, within Buddhism. And our main difference, I think, is to not to look at the deed of giving, so much as the motivation behind the giving. That is really important to consider. And of course, the word charity has at its root a word which means love. So this giving, this response to need, whenever we find it, comes out of a loving heart. And in fact, giving is just the beginning of the holy life. And it's the beginning of social life too, because when we have children, the first thing that we teach is that they share something that they've been given. If they get a packet of sweets, they should share it with at least their brothers and sisters, if not everybody in the room. And that's the first step away from selfishness and self-regard to thinking of yourself within a social context. We have, as I think, the central motivation of our acts of giving, a set of 4 qualities which are developed through meditation, which are called by various names, Brahma-Viharas, which means divine abidings, but we also use the phrase for it, the liberators of the heart, which is a favourite way of describing them for me. They begin with the kind of loving kindness that many others before me have spoken about. You then move into compassion. So it's not just your goodwill to humanity, but when you see need, then you respond to it automatically, leaving self behind. The need is there, and it's not that I must give, but that person must be helped. Now the opposite of that is when you see people who are in a state of happiness, you don't then say, okay, then leave me till that happens. You encourage their happiness. It's not just that there is unhappiness in this world, there is happiness too. And wishing to see happiness, we give ourselves, again, selflessly, leaving our own feelings behind, to encouraging those that are happy to remain happy and to join in their happiness. And finally, there is a breaking down of all distinctions. Forget about me and them, or poorer or richer, or more holy or less holy. People are people. Beings are beings. And we wish to develop those qualities that are open to all that we come across. I'm going to end now with a chant which comes from the development of these qualities. And the chant is in an ancient Indian language, Pali, but I'll give you the translation first of all, and it is, may all beings be free from enmity and dangers. May they be free from mental suffering. May they flourish happily. May all beings be free from suffering. May whatever they have gained not be lost. Sabe sata aveva hontu Yata lada sampatito mawikatsu.
Thank you for sharing that with us. I think you mentioned something about learning how to give charity from a very young age. I remember just a couple of months ago when my niece was here with us, I would ask her when I would give her something to share something with me. She would automatically say no. So I would pretend to cry, in which she would try to look at me and give me the whole thing. I said, no, I just wanted half, you're being too generous. You know? But it's mostly she's got a good teacher. The next speaker we have is the director of the Al-Mahdi Institute, Sheikh Arif, for those who can please welcome him. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Peace be with you all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The sentiments shared here are common to all faith. I feel we have all understood that the essence of our religion is one and the same, and that just shows that the author of these religions is similarly one and the same. For us to carry forward those universal, beautiful, human, godly teachings in the name of different religions, but that appeal to all of us and are equally shared by all of us. So it's a wonderful occasion to learn, to share, and to take heart that we are at the core and in our essence one and the same, beautiful manifestations of our most beloved, our God, our parent, our nourisher, our master, and our intimate friend. As far as the verse of the Quran is concerned, it says that fasting has been prescribed upon you as it was prescribed upon those before you, so that you may become God-mindful. You may become God-conscious. This verse in itself obviously states that material restraint from bodily desires, is something that is there within all religions to whatever degree it is. And the reason for this is that it becomes a means towards godliness. It's a door towards spiritual enlightenment, or a means towards the attainment of our true status of humanity. With that, we try and understand charity, as has already been stated in some ways. Charity actually begins with the individual giving to the individual. Charity begins at home. And according to this verse, if we can let go of our worldly dispositions, those material restrictions that are within us, then that would be the greatest act of charity. After all, I ask myself, why have I been placed on this earth for, fundamentally? If I was not to be here, God would still sustain the whole earth. The one who is the nurturer of the vast galaxies above me and the microscopic creatures that live within me is not in need of me. My fundamental task here is therefore to become godly myself. How strange would it be if I were to assist others in gaining knowledge and fail to open the book myself and not actualize my own capacity and potential? So charity begins at home. According to this verse, individuals need to let go of their own restrictions, which are known as the worldly restrictions. To let go of greed, jealousy, arrogance, rage, anger, hurt, insecurity, fear, and instead to turn to God and to say, "Oh Lord, as you let go and forgive, allow me to forgive myself and others. Let me rely upon you. You have catered for me in the womb of my mother when I was unworthy of mention. And before I arrived in the cradle of this earth, you ensured that the sun rose every morning, that the earth yielded its crop. The one who has taken care of me so well in my yesterday, shall you abandon me my tomorrow? Allow me to let go of this fear of my tomorrow. Allow me to rely upon you and not to be moved by greed. Let me not lie. Let me exist peacefully, calmly, fully. That's the first and the deepest act of charity, to let go from within. And with that we ask the Lord, O Lord, allow me to let go of my biases. In the 21st century, it does not befit me to judge another on the basis of ethnicity, color, gender, origin, or religion. O Lord, allow me to become as beautiful as you are, as genderless as you, as colorless as you, as statusless as you, as religionless as you. I truly find it strange that the people who build a mosque in the name of worshipping God, that they love, restrict creatures of God from entering into that mosque and praying to their God. If it is for God that you built the mosque, then let it be for the creatures of the mosque, unless of course you built it for your God, who is not the God of mankind. Allow us to go beyond the restrictions of religion, of color, of greed. Make us godly, O Lord. Allow us to give ourselves away in caring love to you. This would be, therefore, the teachings of our faiths across the board of what it means to be charitable. Charity begins at home. Become an image of the most beloved. Going onwards, look at this world of ours. It's an alien world. It's a world in which there are good souls, but a few have stolen the agenda of humanity. The silence and inactivity of the majority allows a very few to drive this world to its destruction. Look at all of us here. We can change our colors, we can change our genders, we can change our religions. The only thing that is common between us is what? Our humanity. Our love of righteousness and goodness. Our God is the common facet, the only real one. We need to, at this point in time, and of course, I will ask us all to remember those who have left this world of ours and gone on to their journey, especially our dear MP, Jo Cox, who lost her life so unjustly. Can we recite Surah Fatiha and observe a moment of silence and pray in whatever way we can pray for Surah Fatiha. I know the frost is getting to me, but I'm forgetting my lines. I'm seldom in this position where I don't know what I'm going to say next. I never invoke prayer in the middle of my sermon. Thank God for pointing out my frailties to myself, and I accept myself in the way that I am, and that's the greatest act of charity, I suppose. Going on, I think as good souls, we need to share this goodness of God with the creatures of God. In Christian, Muslim, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, we have this common belief that God will question us and say, look, I was hungry, did you feed me? I was naked, did you clothe me? I was oppressed, did you stand up for me? I needed you, were you there for me? God says, those to whom I give are my custodians. Those who are deprived are my family. If my custodians do not give what I have given to them, to my family, then surely I shall hold them accountable. God has bestowed us with plenty. I'm not talking about physical wealth, that's the least of his bestowals. He has bestowed us with good hearts. The world needs love. A simple act of kindness, smile towards the other. The Prophet Muhammad said that if you want the paradise of God, smile at a creature of God, and God will give you paradise. Paradise is not sought through worship. Paradise is given by God in kind gestures. If Allah has bestowed upon and blessed us with some ability, use it in His way. if He has given us the ability to speak, say righteous things, bring about goodness. If somebody is being dealt with unjustly, then support them. If somebody is oppressed, then speak up for them. Do not be so insecure that we think of our own well-being, that we think about our own political motivations and means. Do the right thing. If God has given us wealth, then share with others. What a strange world this has become, where our scriptures tell us that look towards your right and towards your left and see that your neighbors are looked after. In today's world, we don't even know our neighbors. We don't even have time to pick up the phone and call our own siblings. There is no time for parents. The old people are confined to care homes and nobody goes and sees them. This world is an opportunity to become godly. When we in the month of Ramadan say, "Oh God, feed those who are hungry," God looks back and says, "But you are my hand. You are supposed to feed the hungry. I feed through you." Clothe those who are naked. He'll say, "You clothe them. That's why I sent you there." This is an opportunity for you. The greatest thing we can do is we can begin to understand clearly that our religions have all been vehicles, means for us to arrive at that pedestal of godliness that befits us. To arrive at that level that is worthy of us. Not to allow religions to bring about ungodly biases within our hearts. I would say this with my concluding remark because I was going to extend it somewhat, and my time is finished now. That any religion that does not liberate an individual and does not bring them towards godliness and completion of humanity is not worthy of being called a religion. And any God being worshipped that does not liberate and bring about goodness of humanity and godliness is not worthy of being called a God and not being worthy of being worshipped. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may God bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your talk. Every time I hear Sheikh speak, I always find it so soothing to the heart. Right now, my stomach is talking to me more than my heart. We had some wonderful Quran citation at the beginning. So now can I just please ask Brother Muhammad Ali to come and share that translation with us. Brother Muhammad Ali, thank you.
After hearing this evening's talks, actually, I've picked a different extract to recite the translation for, thinking it's a bit more appropriate for what's going to happen next. In the name of God, the Beneficent, the Merciful. And remember when the disciples said, "O Jesus, Son of Mary, can your Lord send down to us a table spread with food from the heaven?" Jesus said, "Fear God, if you should be believers." They said, "We wish to eat from it, and let our hearts be reassured, and know that you have been truthful to us, and be amongst its witnesses." Said Jesus, the Son of Mary, "O God, our Lord, send down to us a table spread with food from the heaven, to be for us a festival, for the first of us and the last of us, and a sign from you. And provide for us, and you are the best of providers." Thank you.
Some verses on food just as we get to opening up fast, very pertinent. Thank you so much. So we come to the end of our program. We thank you all for attending. I mean, just having a look around in the room. If you all look around, it's completely packed. It's wonderful to see. It's also been wonderful to hear so many different expressions of different faiths and about charity. So now, before we conclude, we have a raffle draw. You must all have been given a ticket on your way in. So I'm going to ask you to prepare those tickets. Have your number ready? And I think like Sheikh Arif to come forward and take it.
Yes, sir.
I'm number 28, so if you want to be thankful for me and sing today. So we have number 12. We have number 12 with us? Hey, that takes so much more of it. Remember, don't worry, we still have one more opportunity. Number 33. Number 33, anyone? Well, we have number 33. Thank you very much. We hope that this event has left us all with a spirit, added onto a spirit of hospitality, a spirit to welcome our neighbors, a spirit to welcome people of different faiths, of different communities to our home. The time after prayers has come. We should have our prayers outside. So we have the congregation prayers outside. You as members can join in physically. You can watch from far away, from nearby, far away. Or you can go directly to the dining hall, which is straight down, for some food. Can I just ask the people that are praying outside, please don't pray for rain. Thank you. So we're now making preparations for prayers. There's a blue area here, and there's